Warm welcome to everybody to our WBC webinar today. My name is Julia Winter. I am the Operational Manager of Carbon Standards International, and I'm very happy to introduce the World Biochar Certificate guidelines to you today. Okay. Our World Biochar Certificate guidelines were published mid of September this year, and the guidelines are very equal to the European Biochar Certificate guidelines. Because, as you know, our EBC guidelines are well known on the market, the world trusts on our EBC guidelines, but we all very often got the feedback to the EBC guidelines that they don't match to the world outside of Europe. And this is why we have decided that we want to create and develop new guidelines for the world. But as we have, we are very successful with the EBC guidelines, and we don't want to create something totally new, but we have some requirements which differs a little bit from the EBC guidelines, and these I want to tell you in the next hour. Just that you know it, so the WBC guidelines, as I said, they are very equal to the EBC guidelines, and this is why we use the slogan WBC is the EBC for the globe. So you find the guidelines on our European Biochar website, and also the label is very similar to the EBC web label, and we also use the EBC portal. So we have all the biochar for which we have written the guidelines all together under the EBC. There are some advantages of the World Biochar Certificate guidelines. So you know we certify biochar according to these guidelines. It doesn't matter if it's for the EBC or for the WBC. And the most important things are that the World Biochar Certificate guidelines are valid all over the world. So it doesn't matter in which country you are located. We can certify your biochar according to the WBC guidelines. Only the EU and the EFTA states are accepted from the locations, because here we have the EBC guidelines where we have some European regulations in it which are necessary to sell the biochar in the EU and EFTA states, and also to apply the biochar in these countries. We have strong requirements in the WBC guidelines on the biochar, and it includes also the biomass feedstock, the biochar properties, and the pyrolysis technology. So because we want to be sure with the WBC that you have a sustainable production and that your biochar which you have produced doesn't harm the environment, the humans, and the animals. Also on the WBC guidelines, we refer on analytical parameters, which defines the certification class of the biochar and its application. And these analytical parameters are based on different national regulations, but also on the EBC and the IBI. I will go later on more in the details. And another point, which is also important, that when we have certified the biochar according to WBC, it's also possible to generate carbon sinks according to our EBC ceasing guidelines. So you know this is a methodology of Carbon Standards International, where we describe how we calculate the carbon sink out of biochar. And these carbon sinks are all registered in our registry, and it doesn't matter if the biochar is certified according to WBC or according to EBC. So this is a short overview of the advantage of the WBC guidelines. And now I want to switch to the details in the guidelines and point out some important things which we have defined as a requirement in the guidelines. So you see here, this is the table of the content. It looks very similar to the EBC guidelines, but we have important differences, especially in these chapters, which are highlighted in green. So we have differences in the application classes, in the feedstock, but we have also in the pyrolysis technology. So now we go into the chapters, and I will explain you a little bit more the details of the WBC guidelines. And the main difference of the WBC guidelines in comparison with the EBC guidelines are the application or the certification classes. So in WBC, we only work with 3 application classes. So we have the WBC Premium class, which is the highest quality which you can have the certification for. So it's suitable for all applications which you can have with the biochar, and it is made from plant biomass with low heavy metals and a low H2C ratio. Also the feed is here included. So if you want to sell your biochar as feed, then there are perhaps some national requirements which you have to fulfill. And this is, for example, that you need a certification or the licensee as a feed producer, and also additional analyses are required. But this would be like your responsibility, that you know your requirements of your country, and that you can show these requirements to the inspector, so that he knows that you are aware of these requirements, the additional requirements besides WBC, and that you can sell then your biochar as feed on your market. The second application class is WBC Agro. So as it tells us, it's for application in soil, not only in the agricultural sector, but also in the cities if you want. So we have here more feedstock which is allowed on the positive list, including animal byproducts and biosolids. And here it's important to know that when you use animal byproducts and biosolids, then you can only use it as a pure feedstock. So you are not allowed to mix these animal byproducts and biosolids as a feedstock. Here we have limited 8 PAHs. They are limited to 1 microgram per kilogram. This is a very important analytical parameter which we need for the application in the soil. Then at the last point, we have the WBC materials certification class or the application class. So this is not usable for soil application. So you can only use it for industrial materials like concrete, cement, or streets. And this is also why we said that this is a minimum requirement for the classification as biochar. So all this black powder which does not meet this requirement is not in our definition a biochar, and we will not certify it. And this biochar for WBC materials, this is only allowed to sell as an industrial B2B trade. So you are not allowed to sell it to any farmers who could apply it into the soil. So when we go now deeper into these analytical parameters, these are very important aspects of the guidelines, then I have compared it also with the EBC guidelines, so that you see where are the differences. And here, when we start with the WBC premium certification class, which is usable for, the biochar is usable for all the applications, then it can be compared with the EBC Feed Plus certification class. And you see here with the heavy metals and the PAHs that we have here such big differences in the parameters. Only in the PAHs, in the 16 EPA PAHs and the 8 EFSA PAHs, we have here the same values. But all the heavy metals for the WBC are higher as in the EBC Feed Plus category. The same is with the WBC Agro. So as we said, the Agro certification class is eligible so that you can use the biochar in the soil, so for agricultural use, but also in land which is not used for feed or food production. So it would be comparison with the EBC Agro Organic, the Agro and the Urban certification class. And also here you see that the heavy metals are higher than on the EBC level. And also on the 16 EPA PAHs, we have here only the requirement of the declaration. And for the 8 EFSA PAHs, we have the limit, which we have also for the EBC, so 1 gram per ton on dry matter. Then when we go to the materials certification class, then you know that we have in the EBC guidelines the consumer materials and the basic materials. And we have put this all together in one category for the materials in the WBC. And here we say we don't have any limit values for the certification of the heavy metals, so equal as for the basic materials. And also for the 16 EPA PAHs, we only have the declaration, but we have a limit of 4 gram per ton for the 8 EFSA PAHs. Then if you go to the next chapter, this would be the biomass feedstock. Then we have here a separate positive list of permissible biomass. Here you also see, when I go here to the link, that we have in the same manner as we have it for the EBC, we have here the different feedstocks differed by the origin. So here the agricultural, the forestry and the wood processing, landscape management and so on. And we have here the 3 certification classes so that you can check which feedstock can be used for which certification class of the biochar. And when there is not a tick, then it's not allowed to use, for example, here vegetables for the production of WBC premium biochar. And if we have like the tick in a bracket, then it means that there are specific requirements which you find here in the last column. The feedstocks are also very similar to the EBC guidelines, also with the specific requirements. But there are a few small differences which occur. Then, 1 second, we have also here in the WBC only the allowance that you can use biomass which is made by photosynthesis, and no fossil carbon is allowed. But we are here a little bit more open. So when you have mixed waste which contains fossil carbon, then you could use this mixed waste, but you have to track this fossil carbon and need to have a confirmation or approval from our side that you can use this mixed waste. For the land management of for primary agricultural products is the same. So you need to be sure that you preserve the soil organic carbon. And also for the forest wood, we require the FSC and the PEFC certification or any regional standards which guarantees a sustainable forest management. In some cases, it can be that we ask for a dossier for your forest management, especially when the regional standard is not clear enough, or if you have another certification, sustainable certification for your forest management, which we don't know so far. We want to guarantee that we don't have clear cutting in the forest. And this is why you may have to provide a dossier where you can make this clear. Then for the security for manure, pyrolyzing of manure, we have also like the standard that you have to pyrolyze this feedstock with more than 500 degrees for at minimum 3 minutes. And you can only use it as a WBC agro and the WBC materials standard. Then the next chapter would be the biochar sampling. Here we are in line with the EBC guidelines. We don't have additional requirements or other requirements. So it means that, as we know it from EBC, we need a representative sample per batch. And you need to send in a sampling plan where you describe how you take the samples. And the e-learning, which we use for the EBC sampling, is also required for the WBC. There is a fact sheet for the EBC sampling training, which is publicly available on our website. And it also counts for the WBC, so there are no specific requirements on this. Then we have some biochar properties in chapter 7. So we define like the organic carbon content, for example, or the H2C org ratio, such properties which we also know from the EBC guidelines. As you also know, we do not define a minimum biochar organic carbon, as we don't do it in the EBC guidelines, but we have the rights, and this is special here in the WBC guidelines, that we can exclude biochar with properties which are highly atypical of specific feedstock. So it means, for example, if you have a wood gasifier ash, which has only 30% organic carbon content, then it could be that we say, no, we can't certify this wood gasifier ash as a biochar. This is only an option, so that we have the possibility, but in general, the carbon content of biochar is higher. Then an important chapter is the pyrolysis technology. So we have here also 4 requirements which are important for the system, for your technology. So it means that the biomass pyrolysis must be operated in an energy efficient manner. It means that you can use fossil fuels to preheat the pyrolysis unit, but if it is preheated, then it has to be run by itself, so it has to be a closed system. Also, the pyrolysis gases must be recovered or burned, and the syngas combustion must comply with national emission limit values. This is the same as we have for the EBC, but here in the last point, 8.4, we have like a slightly and important differences in comparison with the EBC. So we also say that the biochar production must be carbon efficient and the waste heat should be used. And here this is like the opportunity to you that when you can't utilize your waste heat, the requirement would be 70%, then you have a transition period of maximum 3 years in which you can find a solution how you can use your waste heat. But if you have, and this is very special for the WBC, if you are not possible to recover your heat because, for example, you have a mobile pyrolysis unit for debris and waste biomass pyrolysis, then you can make a request to Carbon Standards International and show your situation and your pyrolysis unit, and then it's possible that we make an exemption that you can use your mobile pyrolysis under the WBC without using the heat which you produce. Then we go to the labeling. Here we have the WBC logo, which you have to use for labeling your biochar. It's the trust and your benefit that you can use this logo when you are certified, and that you can show your customers that you have a safe biochar which doesn't harm the environment, the humans and the animals. And together with this logo, there are some information mandatory on the biochar. So you have always to declare the certification class, the organic carbon content, the H2C org ratio, the pH, the dry weight, the volume, and the QR code, which is available in the EBC portal. So this is like for your supplier, that they know what kind of biochar they buy. And you can make advertisement with your good quality of biochar. Then we have the chapter 12, the control, quality management and certification. So also in the WBC, we have an on-site inspection once per year and the certification of the biochar and the C-Sync by our partner Ceres Cert. I have also mentioned here the website where you find the services of Ceres Cert. And Ceres Cert will come on site, make the inspection, and here it's important that you know from the beginning for which guideline you want to be certified. So it means we have option 1 that you say, okay, I want to go with WBC because you have perhaps a mobile pyrolysis unit which is not allowed for the EBC, or you want to reach a certification class where you can put your biochar into the soil, and perhaps you could not reach the thresholds of EBC, and then you decide that you want to be certified for WBC. Or you say, no, I want to keep this EBC because it's a strong label, it's known on the market, and I want to go with this. Or you can also decide that you say, okay, I want to go with both guidelines, with WBC and EBC, because you have perhaps different feedstock which you want to use, and you want to apply your biochar into the soil. And then it's also possible that you have biochar which is certified for WBC and biochar which is certified for EBC. The important thing is that you always have to follow our certification process. So it means that it doesn't matter which guideline you follow, WBC, EBC or both, you have to follow the certification process. And for WBC and EBC, if you make both together, then you or the inspector has to fill in 2 checklists where the questions are similar, but the specific points will be inspected by the inspector for both guidelines. And this is important, so we don't have a direct recognition between WBC and EBC. So really you have to check which guideline you want to have, and then you go this way for WBC, you go the way for EBC, or you go the way in parallel for WBC and EBC. And at the end, you will have then your certificate which fits you to your biochar. You find here also the link to the certification process. It's publicly available on our website. And yeah, so it's the same process for EBC and WBC. Then if you have any questions after this webinar, you can reach me by email or by phone call. And yeah, so if you have any questions, you can now ask them. I will check the chat. So we have biomass, bamboo, tropical hardwood. From the biomass, we use Contiki-like technology to obtain biochar, process it and apply into soil. We want the local producers to generate carbon credits and obtain WBC certification. First question, is it possible from the WBC point of view? Yeah, this is possible. So you can use this biomass, which you have mentioned here, because they are all on the positive list of the WBC guidelines. And you can also use a Contiki, because this is allowed under the technology that even you may not use the heat, the Contikis are allowed for WBC. And then it goes further. How can we certify multiple smallholder producers up to 1,000 that are producing biochar from their local biomass management? As you may know, we have also the artisan seizing guidelines, which is made for such smallholder producer groups. There you can also use Contiki, but the quantity is limited for the production. And here the best would be that we talk together, how much biochar you would produce. And then we can decide if the artisan seizing guidelines with the smallholder producer network is eligible for you, or if we go for the WBC, where we have to certify each individual producer according to WBC and EBC. Okay, then Ramon Bacre, you are in Mexico. Yeah, you said also you are interested in biochar standards for smallholder producers and low cost, high quality in production system. So this is the same. So with the artisan and the WBC, we have here like two guidelines which can be eligible for your project, also both. But we have to see in which country. So for the artisan, for example, it's only allowed to use it in countries with lower income. So this is like a criteria which we have to see if it's eligible for, if yes or not. And the second point would be, as I said, the quantity which you produce. And then we can decide if you can go with the artisan or with the WBC.
Mexico is eligible, Julia, just for your information.
Okay, thanks. Then it would only be the quantity. Then we have here another question. Is there any guidelines for applying for certification if biochar comes from mixed feedstocks, waste, sludge, low heavy metal content with wood chips, etc.? So this is what I mentioned. So when you have waste sludge, then this is only for the WBC Agro certification class. You can only use it in a poor form. but it depends a little bit which certification class you want to reach. For materials, you could mix the feedstock also with waste sludge. Then here, can you remind us what would be the main difference between WBC and EBC? Which one would be best to get the C-Sync certification as well? Okay, so you can go with the C-Sync certification with both guidelines. This is the big advantage which you have. So it doesn't matter if you go with EBC biochar or the WBC biochar. You can, with both, use the EBC C-Sync guidelines to create carbon sinks. And the main difference between WBC and EBC, I would say it's the thresholds in the analytical parameters with the different certification classes, and the possibility that for the technology, also technologies are allowed which do not use the heat. This would not be allowed for EBC. For EBC, you have to use the heat at least after 3 years. Is WBC a requirement to get the C-Sync certification? Yeah, so this is correct. So you need a biochar quality certification, so either EBC or WBC, to get the C-Sync certification. While the document mentions pyrolysis and gasification as the process able to produce biochar, there is no mention of biochar made as the result of biomass-fueled combustion boilers. Would biochar created as a byproduct from biomass-fueled combustion boilers still qualify for WBC? As it depends. So if the biochar meets our definition and our analytical parameters, then we can certify the biochar. Here, the risk sometimes is that the PAHs are too high, so this could be a reason that we can't certify the biochar according to WBC. Okay. Any other questions? The chat box. You can also raise your hands or here. Okay, 1 second. So are you following the completion of CO2 removals methodology under the Paris Agreement article 6.4? Don't you consider to jointly develop and submit a proposal to this mechanism? We are working on this at carbonrecycling.eco. Yeah, you know that this is all on the voluntary market at the moment, and we follow the Paris Agreement, and we also speak with the European Commission that our methodology will be recognized or known in Brussels. So when there are further developments on this carbon removal market, that also biochar and our methodology EBC C-Sync will also be part of it. Yes, we are still in discussion, and we will see where the way will go. But you can be sure that we will make what is possible, that our guidelines will be also accepted. Then, so Giulio, you have raised your hand. Do you want to ask a question? We don't hear you. 1 second. You have to unmute you. Oh, I can't. You have to do it on your own. No, it doesn't work. Are you aware of experience? Okay, we will try with Bernhard first, and then perhaps afterwards, Giulio, you have the chance to talk. Okay,
yes, Julia, do I interpret it correctly that the use of a fixed Contiki, not a mobile one, a fixed Contiki, is basically limited to a period of 3 years?
Yeah,
due to the
correct.
okay. Okay. Then this sometimes is important for us to when it goes between an artisan certification of an artisan pro and WBC. Okay.
Okay, Julia, you want to try again? Or I think you have also put your question into the chat.
Hello.
Yeah. Now it works. Yeah, great. Hello.
Hello. Sorry, I sent the question. There are some companies, especially multinationals, European companies that are all over the countries, and here they have to solve the problem with the food waste, and they are going into anaerobic digestion, and they have to use it and process it into their own plants. I was asking you if you have experience with companies that are producing biochar and using in their own chain of vegetables production, for example, or food production, and how if they can deduct it from the food waste when they do pyrolysis. Is something that they are not aware here in the local companies, but I do not know if you know experiences in Europe or in the United States or elsewhere that we can learn from those experiences and put it into our countries.
So I personally don't have experience with companies who use food waste for pyrolysis. We have it on the positive list, so it would be possible. And but I can't tell you at the moment, which are the experience so far. Pyrolysis, food waste.
Exactly, because they have their own procedures and manuals, and if I found something that was done anywhere, I can show as an example that they did somewhere else. That I'm looking for those experiences first ones.
Okay, I can ask in my team. Perhaps we will find someone who has other experience as I have, and then I can contact you.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay. Perhaps you can write me an email, then I have your contact details, and then I remember the question.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. So then I will try. Okay, here. Thank you for your presentation. Is there any certification for biochar using in steel industry as a reducing agent? Also I have heard already about it, but we don't allow it as a reducing agent in the steel industry. So you can't make any carbon sinks out of this with our methodology. So yeah, the knowledge is limited here, but it happens, and we had already a few requests on this. In terms of timelines, does the EBC and WBC require at the same time? Is there any approved lab in the US to send the biochar over? So the timelines are the same. So the process, as I told you, is the same for the certification. So you would also have, we say, 2 until 3 months to get the certification. So far, only the EBC accredited laboratories are accredited, and they are located still only in Germany. But we are working hard to get other laboratories approved and accredited. So if you have any suggestions to labs, we are very happy when you share the contact details. As you know, our requirements for an accredited lab are a little bit difficult, or sometimes a little bit hard to achieve. And this is why not every lab can participate, but we are really focused on this, and we know that it's an important issue, and we hope that we can present next year more labs all over the world, also in US. Then we have the food waste. Would there be a minimum demonstrated percentage efficiency of using waste heat? Other the 70% would be the minimum which we require. Normally, if you use the heat for drying your biomass, or if you put it into the grid, then you normally reach the 70%. So if it's only 65, it's not like a matter that you would get a non-conformity, but we say more or less 70%. This is kind usable. Yeah, you have answered this already. Within 3 years, WBC is able to allow the use of mobile system to make biochar, even if it does not recover energy. However, when it comes to ceasing certification, are they still limited by their geographical location? Also, you mean with the mobile systems, right? Also, it's not limited. So if you can also have like a mobile system in the countries which are allowed for WBC. When we come to the ceasing certification, then sure you would have a disadvantage because you don't use the heat, and perhaps you have to use external energy to dry your biomass, and this would be like reduce your ceasing value a little bit more because you don't have a closed system, but it would not, you would not have a limit on the geographical location, if I understand your question correctly. So using the Contiki, it is possible to have the biochar certified under WBC within a 3-year period. Correct, yeah. It is very difficult to control the waste heat from the Contiki kilns. Yeah, we are aware of this. So hi Julia, thank you. You answer mainly with regards to the EU framework. Can you anticipate already how well ceasing standards will be in line with Article 6 mechanism? Unfortunately not so by heart, but we can work it out for you. I know that my colleague has already worked on it, and but we can send you the answers after the webinar. Can you tell us if the rock kiln type satisfies the requirements of the WBC? I personally don't know the rock kiln, to be honest, but we can also take this question with us and send you afterwards the answer, Fred. Then we have here, as it is possible. If any of you is interested in creating carbon credits with the ceasing trader from WBC, EBC accredited biochar, feel free to reach out. To Simon Kula. We have developed a state of a tracking solution, correct, and also helps with on-site operation management, and are happy to chat. Great, thank you, Simon. Okay, then I'm again on the bottom. Any more questions? Yeah, Bernhard?
It's not really a question, it's kind of a comment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting the question by myself and answering it by myself.
This is also
so the question
perfect.
is, yes, but I thought it might be interesting for some of you. So the question is, when is ceasing certification becoming a business case for the operators? And the answer is when you got volume, when the biomass is in a central place, when there is a heat demand, and when there is good use of the biochar. So those are the 4 factors which you should take into consideration, and the better you get them straightened along within your business development, the more profitable the business will be. And just to give you an example, like implementing WBC in the Latin American sugarcane industry is just a perfect fit. You get a huge volume of sugarcane residues from pressing the cane. It's all in one point at the sugar mills. You have a huge heat demand, and the biochar is used in the fields where the sugarcane comes from. So it's just to give you an example what might be an interesting business case for WBC certification.
Great, thank you very much, Bernhard. Okay, there is another. Perhaps not. No. Okay, any further questions? Yeah. Renato.
Hello, Julia. How are you doing? Well, first of all, thank you very much for the presentation. It's been very helpful. I just wanted to know, maybe in your opinion, would you say there's like a market benefit or opportunity if a specific biochar project goes with WBC or EBC? I mean, EBC can be have more requirements than WBC, but that does mean that it's going to have more like a premium biochar status if we get EBC instead of WBC?
Also, we don't allow the WBC in the EU because we say when you want to sell your biochar and use it in the EU, you have to meet the requirements of the EU regulation, and they are implemented in the EBC guidelines. And we don't think that the WBC is less quality, because you have, I mean, it's very similar to the EBC guidelines, only that we have other thresholds, but they are also related to EBC, to national laws, and to IBI. So we hope that also the WBC will have this high quality image which we have with the EBC as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Julia.
You're welcome. Great. Okay, we have 7 minutes left. If anybody wants to ask a question. I think, Bernhard, you have still your hand up for your last question. Great. Okay. Then I think you are all satisfied and know all about the WBC guidelines. Yeah, I mean, I'm here. My team is here. Yeah. Oh, no. Okay, so you can just write me an email, or we can chat in a separate call, and then I can answer all your questions. And yeah, I'm looking forward to our partnership and to more certifications according to WBC. Have a great afternoon and see you soon.